evolution doesn't take prisoners.
You don't have to be poor anymore. Jesus is here.
The loudspeaker spoke up and said, Christianity is stupid.
This is the Atheist in the Trailer Park podcast. I'm your host, Tucker. Professor Fuzznuts is happily taking a scritchel from me. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, it's a podcast hosted by a guy and his cat. Get over it. If you happen to like the podcast, you can follow it on Twitter. TParkAtheist is the show's Twitter handle, and it's also on Facebook at facebook.com/trailerparkatheist. You can email me at trailerparkatheist@gmail.com. This is a new show episode where I cover stories in the news that are related to things like atheism, secularism, science, or that I find just plain interesting. The next episode will be a chapter from Bible myths and their parallels in other religions. If you'd like to skip this episode and go to that one, that's perfectly fine by me.
Jesus, fuck you! Liam, fuck you!
And now, a look at what's happening with religion. This story comes from GallatinNews.com. Dateline. Gallatin, Tennessee, a.k.a. the town I live in. Gallatin police arrested 46-year-old Roy Neal Yoakum Monday for the statutory rape of a 14-year-old member of his church congregation, according to a press release. Yoakum is a convicted sex offender who lives in Scottsville, Kentucky, with a secondary address in Gallatin, the release said. At the time of the sexual assaults, Yoakum was the pastor at the New Gospel Outreach Church in Scottsville. Yoakum assaulted this victim on 2 occasions, once at his church in Kentucky and once at his Gallatin residence in early June, the release said. And let me just skip over to the blog The Way Forward, which is by Bruce Garenser. My apologies to Mr. Garenser if I'm mispronouncing his last name. This one, and that story was dated July 8th. Okay, today is July 20th. For those of you paying attention, this is the 45th anniversary of the Apollo moon landing. Anyways, Mr. Garenser's blog post is dated. I speak English. Mr. Garenser's blog post is dated June 20th. So, exactly a month ago from today. And he mentions the arrest of Roy Yoakum in Kentucky, obviously. Since Roy was arrested in July, this blog post wouldn't mention it. But speaking as someone who lives in Gallatin, the first I heard of him being arrested was when he was arrested here. They didn't mention anything about it in the local paper prior to his arrest here. Not really a good sign. And interestingly enough, we learned, thanks to Mr. Garenser's blog, that the New Gospel Outreach Church is really shitty at picking pastors, because their previous one in 2011 was arrested and charged with embezzling over $300,000 from the church. Now, what I just cannot grasp is how this guy was allowed by the church to be alone with a kid. Generally these days, any organization that works with children is required by their insurance company to have 2 adults on site if there are children present. They do not allow children to be supervised by one adult, because if you've got two adults, the odds of, a child being abused by one adult are significantly lower. Now, maybe this church didn't have insurance. I don't know. I don't know how this guy came to the attention of the police. Whether the parents of his victim, according to some of the articles, it's likely that there are other victims at this church. So he didn't just molest the kid in 2005 and this kid, but there are others. So, we know there's more, but we don't know how the police became aware of it. We don't know if the parents went to the church and then the church went to the police, or if the parents went straight to the police. Given the fact that the church was willing to hire him and allow him to be alone with kids, it seems unlikely that the parents went to the church and then the church went to the police. It's fucking stupid for so many reasons. Even if you give this guy the benefit of the doubt in saying that he was trying to reform himself after his first conviction, there is no justification for allowing him to be alone with that kid or kids that he molested. None. But, 'cause Jesus forgave him, they were willing to do that, apparently. I don't understand it, and I find it frustrating. I mean, I understand the concept of forgiving him, of overlooking his prior conviction. I think it's a noble thing when somebody can say, yes, you were arrested for this crime, you were convicted for this crime, but we're going to give you another chance. More people need to do that, but that doesn't mean you don't take steps to make sure that if you've misjudged this person, nobody gets hurt. They could have done that, and they didn't, which is just freaking wrong. Okay. Next story comes from rawstory.com. Governor tells Iowans to repent in official proclamation for Christian revival at Capitol. An official proclamation signed by Governor Terry Branstad, Republican, there's a surprise, has called on Iowans to pray and repent on a daily basis. In a public ceremony earlier this year, Branstad signed the proclamation ahead of a July 14th revival at the Iowa Capitol. Quote, "Now, therefore, I, Terry E. Branstad, as governor of the state of Iowa, do hereby invite all Iowans who choose to join in the thoughtful prayer and humble repentance according to 2 Chronicles 7:14 in favor of our state and nation to come together on July 14th, 2014. Okay, this story just is all kinds of violations of separation of church and state. There's hopefully the ACLU or the Freedom from Religion Foundation will sue over this shit, because it's fucking crazy. Yes, I know. It's not like he held a gun to anybody's head, but it's shit like this that gets people saying, well, America's a Christian nation. No. The Founding Fathers, especially the most devoutly religious Founding Fathers, wanted a hard wall between the church and the state, because they had come to this country to get away from the Church of England, and yet while here in the state, in the colonies, they still had to pay taxes to the Church of England, even though they were Baptist or Catholic or what have you. And so when we set up the Constitution, I need to point out that the Constitution was created by essentially the third government of the United States. We had the Continental Congress during the Revolutionary War, then the Articles of Confederation, and then the government set up by the Constitution. Anyways, when the Founding Fathers wrote the Constitution, they wanted to be sure that no one could be compelled to support a religion, because the Baptists, Catholics, etc., were all tired of paying money to the Church of England, even though they didn't agree with it. Somehow, we in the 21st century have forgotten about that. That the religious people didn't want the church meddling in... The religious people didn't want the government meddling in church business, and vice versa. They understood that if the government meddles in church business and the churches meddles in the government business, it's bad for everybody. But we fuck nuggets have forgotten that. And according to this article, even the lieutenant governor of Iowa was in favor of it. Iowa Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds also spoke, praising the crowd for standing up for our rights and for individual liberties. Because yes, we know Christians just have it so fucking hard in America. We have trains hauling them off to re-education camps every day. Oh wait, no we don't. Okay. This story is from addictinginfo.org, Dateline, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Driver says God told her, "I'll take it from here." So she let go of the wheel, promptly runs over motorcyclist. Depending on how you look at it, either God drove a car into motorcyclist Anthony Oliveri, or, more likely, a woman took a leap of faith and the laws of physics did the rest. While driving along the roads of Fort Wayne, Indiana, a car suddenly and inexplicably swerved directly into Oliveri. Police say the car not only ran over his bike, but also Oliveri, leaving him badly injured on the road. The car kept on driving. Speaking with WANE, Oliveri said he thought he was dead. "I remember it happened and I didn't quite know what was going on for a split second. As I grabbed the handlebars as the bike was losing control and I looked back around my left shoulder, all I see is her tire and the left bumper getting ready to run my face over. Literally, I was inches from that bumper and I just said to myself, today is the day I die. I just shut my eyes and said, if this is the way that God wants to do it, then I guess that this is the way we're going to do it," Oliveri said. I mean, she put him in a hospital. The car ran over his midsection, breaking all of his ribs on his left side, damaging his spleen. He doesn't really need it anyways. Bruising his kidney and leaving him with road rash that covered much of his back and extremities. It's amazing that he lived. Oliveri and his fiancée attribute his survival to divine intervention. Police caught up with the woman who hit Oliveri several blocks down the road. According to the police report, the woman, identified as 25-year-old Priyanda C. Hill, told them that, quote, she was driving and out of nowhere God told her that he would take it from here, and she let go of the wheel and let him take it. All right, and let me just skip down to this part here. Thankfully, several retired nurses saw the accident and rushed to Oliveri to help. When they had him stabilized, they called an ambulance and he was rushed to the hospital. Okay, so God tells this woman driving her car, and I need to point out that according to some accounts, she is from Tennessee. Where in Tennessee, I don't know, and I'm not sure if that's true or not. Anyway, so God tells this woman, "Hey, you, let go of the wheel and I'll do everything for you." And she promptly runs over this motorcycle driver. doesn't stop, just keeps rolling on down the road. The motorcycle driver says, well, I guess this is how God's going to take me out. You know, thanks God for being so compassionate to take him, him out by being hit by a car, and not just like, a stroke where, he just winks out and it's never here anymore. No, God's going to take him out by a slow, painful death. And when he survives, he declares it a miracle, even though there were several nurses who happened to see what was going on, and it went and helped him and kept him alive until the ambulance showed up. I mean, it's just fucking crazy all the way around. Hang on a second. Fuzznuts has showed up. Ow, 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 ow. He's now crawling all over my shoulder. Okay. Now he's settled down on the couch. Silly cat. But, the only conclusion I can draw from this is that Oliveri must have had loud pipes on his bike, and like many people, myself included, God hates loud pipes, and he told Ms. Hill that he was going to take the wheel simply so he could direct the car into Oliveri and smear his ass all over the interstate so nobody had to listen to the loud pipes on his bike. I know it's terrible for me to say that, but I've actually suffered hearing loss because some asshole on a motorcycle with loud pipes, so I have no sympathy for anybody on a bike who gets hit. I say that I had a cousin who raced motorcycles, but and I don't I don't have a problem with somebody who has a decent sounding bike, but when I get hearing damage because your bike, there's a problem. And it just irritates me, and I'm being loony about it. I'll be the first to admit it, but there you have it. If I wasn't loony, I probably wouldn't be living in a trailer park, and you wouldn't be listening to this podcast.
I am endeavoring, ma'am, to construct a mnemonic memory circuit using stone knives and bearskins.
Okay. Now for little third world news. This section is where I cover news of interesting technological developments either in or relating to the third world. As someone who grew up listening to missionaries talk about how they, quote, helped, unquote, people in third world countries by teaching them about Jesus, I like to raise awareness of actual good being done in such places by people, either the people there or people from outside. I hate saying outside. People from developed nations coming up with things to help those in the third world. This story comes from Yenko Design. Water collection made easy. There are many ideas out there which are low cost and effective in collecting waters in one of these days I'll learn English. Rural and remote areas. These are areas like refugee camps in Africa where running water is not easily accessible. The water roll is a container that can be rolled along a path, and by adding a removable faucet, you can directly use it to drain the water. The container is covered with a recycled tire material that adds a layer of protection and extends the useful life. Water Roll won the finalist award of the IDEA Design Award 2014 competition. Designers are Qunxi, Qunxi, Huang, and Yolegma, Yolegma Marquez. Basically, what it looks like is a pony beer keg. It's made out of plastic, and the middle of the cylinder has a rubber strip around it, like a tire, and you can stack them and then run a pole through them so two people can carry multiple at one time, or you can set it up so it sort of looks like the tire of a wheelbarrow and push it along that way, or you can carry an individual unit on your head. I will say the problem with Yanko design is that some of the items on their site, you don't know if they're real or not. There at least looks like there's a prototype of this that has been created. It's a fantastic idea anyways, because I've read a number of stories about people in developing nations, and the women, and it's almost always the women, spend an awful lot of their time gathering water just to do daily things like bathing, preparing food, etc., etc. And, this really looks like it would be a way to enable them to carry more water at a time and thus have more time to do things like take care of the kids or whatever they need to do that will help them get out of poverty. As Hitchens and Dawkins have both pointed out, and really a number of other organizations have pointed out, the more time, ability, etc., a woman in a developing nation has, the faster she and her family get out of poverty. And I mean, there's nothing on here which indicates that there's a way to support it, but because it's a really good idea, and somebody needs to be making this shit, assuming it doesn't already exist. Because while some of the photos on Yanko are clearly CGI renderings, there's a few that appear to at least be prototypes. I don't see, and I wish I did. Yeah. There's nothing. Yeah. I sure would like to if there was a way to support these being made and being given to the third world nations, people in third world nations, I would link to it, but I can't. I can't find any. So I'm sorry about that. Yeah, nothing.
Tea Earl Grey hot.
Tea Earl Grey hot.
Okay, the next story, and you'll have to forgive me. This one's going to be a little awkward because the original post comes from it's an industry-related blog, and they don't write the stories in a journalistic manner. They're chatty, which makes it kind of hard for me to read it out because I either have to read the whole thing, which is a violation of copyright law, and God knows I don't want to be sued, or I have to sit here and fumble through and find all the little bits of text and read those out, which is what I'm going to have to do. And I have to go through two different articles because neither of them gives the complete aspects that make this story so interesting. The first site for the story is WCAX.com. Dateline is Moncton, Vermont. A young girl in Moncton has turned her 5th grade science project into a life-changing hobby. But it's not her life she's changing the lives of other children, one hand at a time. From playing with her dog to her budding interest in lacrosse, Sierra Petroselli isn't your average 11-year-old. She's a 5th grader at Moncton Central School. She's a quiet kid, but not surprisingly to the people who know her well, Sierra has found an extraordinary hobby. Sierra develops prosthetic hands made from a 3D printer. The idea started when she wanted to use a 3D printer for her 5th grade science project. I never thought I was actually going to build a hand. I thought I was just going to show pictures, said Sierra. Sierra connected with a company called eNable, E-Nable, based out of Chicago. The company makes computer models of these hands for children. They sent Sierra a tutorial. Let me scroll down here. Okay. More important than the A she received on her project is the way in which Sierra has decided to use her talent. She's making a new hand for an 8-year-old in California. This hand is for Sierra has developed the first ever prosthetic hand without a thumb. That's right, an 8-year-old girl has developed a prosthetic hand without a thumb. Excuse me, she's not 8, she's 10 or 11. Fucking A. I mean, she's done more valuable shit than I practically have. This hand is for the girl, and it has no thumb because she has a thumb, and I think it will work better, said Sierra. The hand that Sierra will create costs just $50. Compare that to a prosthetic bought from a hospital, and thousands of dollars are saved. Okay. That's all cool, and I mean, the hands aren't realistic at all looking. I mean, it's got fingers and such, but, it's purple plastic or green plastic. They show her holding two different ones. They're very mechanical looking. It's still freaking incredible. But it gets more amazing, and this is where I go to the second article about her, which is from 3dprint.com. Now 11 years old, Sierra and her 9-year-old sister, Sage, have lost no interest in the topic. They now seek to continue helping others by purchasing their very own 3D printer. The problem is that the machine they are looking to acquire is well outside of what any children their age could ever afford. Because of this, they have turned to the Indiegogo crowdfunding platform to ask the world to help them out. Over the next 60 days, they are looking to raise $3,000. The money will be spent on a Leapfrog Creator 3D printing educational package. The package, which includes a high-quality, easy-to-use, fully assembled, and pre-calibrated 3D printer, also comes with 16 spools of 3D printer filament and an elementary school curriculum, among other things. Why the educational package? When the printer is not being used by the girls at home, they will bring it into their school so that it can act as a valuable educational tool. The girls also state on their Indiegogo campaign, "We won't be hanging around the house bored. Instead, we will be discovering how the 3D printer works and making amazing things." Let me scroll up here. Okay. I thought if you read the whole article, it explains that they're going to be making other prosthetic hands, but it's not really explicitly spelled out in a single sentence, so I can't read that. But I mean, that's just freaking cool. I don't care how you want to look at it. It's awesome that they're doing that. And it reminds me of that website. Hang on. It reminds me of that website, whywon'tgodhealamputees.com, where they say, okay, let's get a bunch of people to pray for some good Christian who's lost their arm and see if God will heal it. And so, hang on. While pulling that up, I just found this website, which claims to have an answer from the Christian perspective. So let me just see here. Okay. Here, listen to this. It's discussing about the idea. We'll pick somebody who's an amputee. We'll have millions of Christians pray for them to have their legs restored. And when it doesn't happen, this will prove that God doesn't exist. Here's the argument, the rebuttal. The main problem is that the experiment has never been done. So in reality, he's proved nothing. Okay. It's never been done because he hasn't gotten enough people to volunteer to do it. Even if the experiment were to be run, there are some problems with its design. The first wrong assumption is that a large number of Christians are able to dictate to God what he should do. Oh my God! This is just fucking hysterical. Because we know that anytime you go, there's somebody hurt in church or has cancer or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's pray for this person. So, in this instance, they're saying, well, God doesn't necessarily listen to, do what people pray for, so there's no point in doing it. No. Okay. Healings do not necessarily require large numbers of people praying, since most recorded healings have involved just one prayer. That's a meaningless rebuttal. The second wrong assumption is that God heals all who are prayed for. Okay. But again, he's trying to pick somebody who's most likely to be healed if prayer does work. The third wrong assumption is that every Christian has the gift to heal people. No. That's why you pick millions of people, because in theory, one of them will have the ability to heal, even if all of them don't. You pick large numbers of people because it betters the odds of you finding somebody who actually does have the power. A fourth wrong assumption is that somebody can be found who's deserving. That's just bullshit. That's man. That would take like hours to refute. Oh my God. So, they try to pick somebody who's most likely to be. Wow, this is just hysterical. I mean, the simplest rebuttal to all this guy's arguments is you have people since the time of Christ who have claimed that God has healed them of various diseases, cancer, malaria, whatever, you name it. But you don't have anybody saying, well, I lost my arm and God gave me a brand new one. Statistically speaking, if, one out of 1,000, oh hell, let's say 1 out of 1 billion people who prayed to God were actually healed of their infirmity, whatever it might be it a disease or an injury. At least one of them, in the years since Christ supposedly walked the earth, one of them would have been an amputee who regrew their limb. That's never happened. Wow. People are stupid.
Okay, Space Cadet, prepare to hurt through the cosmos in today's urgent episode.
Okay. Final story tonight comes from theguardian.com. NASA's Curiosity rover finds large iron meteorite on Mars. The iron meteorite discovered by the Curiosity rover must have once been at the heart of a growing planet that was shattered eons ago. The meteorite is made of iron and about 2 meters long, which is about the width of the NASA rover that found it. It is the first meteorite that Curiosity has found on Mars. Scientists have named it Lebanon, presumably because of its shape. Now, there's a good picture of it on the Guardian's site, and I mean, it kind of looks like a crescent. There's a lump in front of the crescent, which may or may not be, a related rock. It's sort of a obsidian, like a cross between obsidian and pumice looking rock, because it's really smooth except for the places where it's pockmarked, but it's not pockmarked quite enough to look like obsidian, pumice stone. So it's neat, and it really makes me wish we had people walking around on Mars to look at this shit. I know that in the 70s, Neil Armstrong said we had the technology then to go to fucking Mars, and we never did because Nixon's a dick. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here, it's kind of getting late, and I have to make like 5 attempts before I get an episode worth publishing, and my hosting plan doesn't allow me to have quite as much storage capacity a month as I thought, which means I'm pushing my limits. I'll be able to get this one up, no problem, but I don't know if I'll be able to get another episode up this month, or if I'll have to wait till the 1st of August to post the next one. Hopefully I'll be able to get the next one up before then. By the time I trim down all the mistakes in this one, etc., it might not be too bad. Once again, you can follow the show on Twitter. TParkAtheist is the show's Twitter handle, and it's also on Facebook at facebook.com/trailerparkatheist. You can email me at trailerparkatheist@gmail.com. The next episode will be a chat